in action, and welcome everyone to Success Mentorship class number 375. Wow, that's amazing, folks. 375 weeks we have been sharing and coming together to learn, to interact, to communicate, to feel what everyone, to feel each and every one of our presence. And we thank you so much for being here. So today is a magnificent day, an incredible day, and we, of course, have so much going on. So let me start first by thanking you for being here, inviting you to visit our website, herbertharris.com. And of course, a lot of the things that we do in this class are based on our book, The 12 Universal Laws of Success. And to remember this, that this is the month for imagination, that if you can see it, you can be it. If you can say it, you can have it. And if you can do it, you can live it. And so before we get into our message today from James Roswell Quinn, who is an incredible international keynote speaker, who's a trainer, a leadership trainer, who has worked around the world. You know, we gave a very long introduction last week, but there's certain things I want to just touch on. From working for the Disney Corporation, Cornell University, State Farm Insurance, Ross has given over 2,000 lectures and keynote speeches and training workshops around the world. He has truly been a transformational speaker. He's an author, and his book, The Love Based Leader, is one of those books that has some great stories in it, some great ideas in it that can help you be what you want to be, do what you want to do, and have anything you want to have. Today is part two of his talk. He began last week, and he said today's message may take a little longer, so that's okay. It's good to have a long pen and a long memory. Today's message, though, is one that's going to not only bless you, it's going to uplift you, and it's going to empower you at this tragic, at this, not tragic, at this opportunistic time in your life where you're looking for that one word, that one thought that can make all the difference. So let us do our meditation so that we can get centered on that vibration within us that makes us whole, that makes us one. Close your outer eyes, open your inner eyes. Take a deep breath and hold it. Let it out slowly. Take a deep breath and hold it. Let it out slowly. And in this space of peace and relaxation, I am at peace with myself. Let us affirm that in our minds. I am at peace with myself. And in that peaceful state, the vibrations within us prepare us and make us open, receptive, and ready to learn. My mind is open, receptive, and ready to learn. Let's affirm that in our minds. My mind is open, receptive, and ready to learn. Take a deep breath. Let it out slowly. So it is. Wow. All right. Let me bring Ross up and let him take us by, let us take us by our minds to that point in time and space where we are, where we need to be, that makes us ready to learn. Here we go. All right, Ross, take it away, my friend.
Thank you, Dr. Harris, very much. Well, good morning, everybody. This is something that I've been looking forward to ever since my wife told me I was looking forward to it. And uh, it's funny. There are circumstances in life that make sense, and there's circumstances that don't make any sense. And it seems like those are the ones that can control us. And it would be very easy for a lot of people to be upset because we started late today, or you should have seen Chris and I running around trying to figure out a way to log in today. That we can do it. We can do it with tension, and we can do it with joy. And I think that's a good starting point for this morning. The two questions I started last week with was, who are you responsible for, and who are you responsible to? And I've taught this concept to a little over 2,000 times, to corporations, to organizations, to individuals, to families since 1979. I've been around for a few years. My oldest daughter will be 50 this year, and I'll be hitting 75. Or as my dad said, that's the third quarter. Welcome to the third quarter. That's when all the scoring's done. So we got to make sure that we're ready for life every morning. And this concept of responsibility is one that I find very few people understand and far fewer actually implement into their lives. And most of the people that have actually implemented it daily, hourly, all the time, people like well, Jesus, Mahatma Gandhi, Mother Teresa, Galileo, when he was trying to told that his what he'd learned wasn't true, to be able to know who you are and be who you are, regardless of the circumstances, requires you to be absolutely responsible for the only person in the world you can be responsible for. I am responsible for how I think. I'm responsible for discovering my gifts. I am responsible for developing those gifts. I'm responsible for all my promises. I am responsible for I think, how I, what feelings I emote. I am responsible for everything that comes solely from me, period, and not one other person in the world. And when and only when I am fully and totally responsible for myself, then can I be responsible to teach my children, responsible to lead my team, responsible to drive without drinking on the freeway, being responsible to strangers who may or may not even be good people, being responsible to others. And that responsibility too is virtually unlimited. If I am being truly responsible for myself, absolutely somebody is benefiting. There must be at least one. And if you aren't giving your gift, if you aren't being yourself, somebody's losing. So, uh, so there has to be a benefit. Somebody's getting benefit from it. And if you don't believe in yourself, but you can see that they've got benefit, then your self-worth needs some work. And I'd be love to coach you. And Dr. Harris says, well, I'm responsible for myself, and then and only then can I be responsible to others. And what happens is that other end of responsibility, how big could it get? Well, we know there's some people who've been globally responsible. The size of your responsibility is limited only by your self-worth, by your vision. And so, as Buckminster Fuller said, hey, if I could serve one person, it'd be great. What happens if I dedicated my life to serving humanity? And with that, he went from being thrown out of Harvard to becoming the longest listing in the history of who's who. And so it's very interesting how we can turn things around. Now, we talked just a quick review for those few people that might not have been here last week. This talk today is finding personal freedom by using personal responsibility to create freedom. And yet defining freedom has many different ways to go with it. But what we find seems to be most appropriate is freedom is that state where there's an absence of control and manipulation. But it's not just the absence of control and manipulation by other people to me, it's the absence of my manipulation and control to others. And the only way I mean, who's the hardest person to take an honest look at? And this is not a trick question. If I asked you to make a list of all the things your old boss could have done to be better, that's an easy list. Your father, your mother, easy list. Your 13-year-old, boy, there's a list. I could tell, I know what all those people should be doing better. My ex-spouse, boy, I mean, that's all. Those people are easy to say what they should or should not have done. But somebody says, what do you need to do to improve? Well, I could quit reacting to idiots. And, the truth is, if my growth is determined on everybody else changing, then why are you here? And so if the other people have to change for you to be happy and peaceful, then you're not in charge. And you'll only be happy when the circumstances are perfect. And I'm telling you, if you treat all 6 of your kids the same, 5 of them are going to think it's imperfect. So there's almost no way, and anytime life's been perfect, duck, because it's not going to last that long. I just find that you go Disneyland and love the day until you get so tired you can't walk. So I mean, all things have a point where they stop being exciting. So what we need to understand that my peace is not up to somebody else. When I'm fully responsible for myself, I'm at peace. And if I'm at peace, then I must have been responsible for myself or I couldn't be there. Now, there's a difference between peace and numb. Peace is that feeling that Dr. Harris was creating for us. He created the space for us, but if you didn't do it, it didn't do any good for you. So it's something that I can only create, and if anyone else takes it away, that's the problem. My wife used the example, whenever you point your finger at somebody else, she did that last week. There's 3 fingers pointing back at you. But more importantly, it's 3/4 of the way to a fist. So we need to understand that we can justify denying that there's a problem. We can justify the problem. It's not my fault. If you were raised like I was raised, you'd be insecure too. We can blame, I wouldn't be yelling at you if you hadn't been yelling at me. Or we can wallow in it. I'm just an idiot. I'm just an idiot, and destroy our own self-worth. So there's all kinds of ways to notice that we've lost control and we're no longer personally responsible for myself. And when I am fully and accountable and responsible for myself, I'm also accountable for results. Now, that's the premise. Now, I've presented this typically on the 3rd day of a 4-day seminar, and the 4th day of a 5-day seminar, on the 3rd talk during a convention, where I presented a great many things beforehand. So what I've understood about this prospect of responsibility is simple. It is the most important concept of life. And if it's not, it's easily the most important concept in relationships. And I'm here to upset your thinking today, not to make you mad, but I want you to look at things a little differently than, I'm responsible for my kids till they turn 18. Well, let's look just a little bit deeper than that, because when you're screaming at your 3-year-old because they spilt milk for the 3rd time, when you're on the way out the door and it got your outfit dirty and you've got to change clothes, are you being responsible for yourself, even if you're feeding the kid responsibly? So we need to take a deeper look at how we can justify irresponsibility before we can choose responsibility. And it takes honesty. The hardest person to take an honest look at that objective is myself. And those 2 things, to be honest and objective, to see the truth without beating on myself, I got to stay objective as well. So it's important that I don't destroy my self-worth while I'm trying to build my self-worth. And so mistakes are not a learning experience. I'm sorry, folks, not if you do them again. You actually have to learn and do something different next time. And that's how we learn. That's how we build self-worth. Pat yourself on the back like Edison. Every time he had a failed experiment, he didn't go, what an idiot. He went, well, there's another way that doesn't work. So the next way will be different. We run into problems and do the same thing over and over again, louder, and somehow expect that if I've told you once, I've told you 1,000 times. Well, maybe you should have tried a different way. So I've given you the best years of my life. Well, you should have shared some of that joy sooner. Maybe we wouldn't be where we are now. Now, what path you use. I mean, we went through the 3 stages of resentment last time with the George story. And those of you that weren't here, go listen to last week's talk and listen to the George story. We get lots of feedback that people get tremendous insights from what that poor guy put himself through that could have been a glorious adventure instead of early death. But the 3 levels of resentment, and the first clue, a flare should go off in life if you feel yourself resisting anything. As my dad would say, as we would start a training, he'd always look at the audience and he'd pause. Well, I'm glad you're here, but I hope you know you're not going to get anything out of this weekend. And you'd see people look at each other and he goes, no, really, you're not going to get anything out of this weekend. Because the only way your life can improve is if you discover what you haven't been giving. It has nothing to do with what you're not getting. It's about discovering what you're not giving, what's in the way of giving it, and then what can you do to overcome that so you can be back in the giving mode. And that giving mode is getting past the denial, the justification, the rationalization, or the beating on yourself. We got to get past that. Those are all signals. And it's easier to change that at that first level of resistance. As soon as I feel myself holding back and justifying or denying, boom, okay, I'm going to move down the path of love to acceptance to forgiveness. Now, I don't forgive people for their benefit. I forgive them for mine. And if somebody else makes me mad, who's in charge? I talk to people all the time. Are you in charge of your feelings? Yeah, I'm in charge. So if somebody else ticks you off, they're in charge. No, I'm in charge. No, never in the history of the world has anybody ever said, boy, what you did made me make myself mad. Listen to the words we use. You let me down. You hurt my feelings. You insulted my kid. You wrecked my car. You cut me off on the freeway. And we justify resentment. For somebody going 1/4 mile an hour too slow in the fast lane. And we've seen people die for that. Well, I'll show them. I'll cut them off. And it's called road rage. It'd be different if they hit you, but they just came close. Isn't that good news? So we need to start looking at changing the way we do, upset our own thinking, start looking at things a little bit differently. I have a couple of talks a week with Coach Smile. And every time we started, I go, thank God it's Tuesday. It's going to be a great day. And he goes, yeah, we both woke up. We're old guys, it's a good thing that, it's sort of a good day just to open my eyes. And so these 2 paths that when you are in that first step of resistance, you are either going to continue down resistance to retaliation when it gets worse. Eventually you'll justify revenge. Or, okay, it may not be easy to give love to that person, but you got to start there. Love through acceptance. I don't understand what you're doing, but I love you and accept you, even though I don't understand you. And instead of basing my love on understanding, the truth is, understanding is what you get when you don't get it in life. You'll get that later. Instead of basing my love and acceptance on understanding it, base it on coming from my essence. Oh, you'll benefit if I don't react to you and I give you love. But that's not why I do it. I do it to take my power back. And the only way I know to take my power back, and I've only worked with about 150,000 people at very deep levels around the world, in every culture, at every age, the answer has always been the same. Discover your gift and give it. And if nobody else knows, you'll know. That's called self-worth. And if self-worth came from others, they'd call it others' worth. So we need to understand, listen to our own words. You made me mad. I'm on the wrong path. Well, it may not be wrong, but as Papa used to say, most people would rather be right than happy, which is to say you'd rather be right than peaceful. And so we watch. I live near Chicago, where gangbangers, well, you insulted me, so you're dead. You know, I go to jail for the rest of my life, but I showed you. Somehow self-destruction doesn't seem to be the next positive step. And so for really for today, that's the concept I want you guys to be thinking about. Who am I responsible for? And if I'm taking responsibility for anyone other than myself, for how they think, for how they act, or for how they feel, or for what they do, that I'm creating the first stage for resentment. And face it, if think about when you were a kid. I always remember when my dad, I did something wrong, he'd say, "Well, this is for your own good." Well, whenever they started it with "this for your own good," I knew it was going to hurt. And if they said it's going to hurt me more than it's going to hurt you, I knew it was going to hurt a lot. And so I would run away. They said, "Come here." I said, "No way." So I learned to react and to pre-act. Forget about the facts. If I believe you're going to hurt me, I won't even show up. And I don't know if any of you can relate to that. And so for you and I to understand that being personally responsible for myself, anything other than that starts the road to resentment. Think about it. So think of somebody that you knew was self-destructive. Try a kid on drugs, or my dad would not pick up his clothes. He'd drop them all over the house. My mother, you could hear her stomach acid dripping in her belly. "Damn, what do you're working at J.C. Penney's, you sell clothes, you hang up clothes all day long, and you know better than to leave them all over the floor." And she'd be running around the house, and he'd walk out and go, "What clothes?" Because she'd picked them all up with resentment. But the house was spotless. He didn't have to pick up his clothes. He knew she'd do it. And so how did she turn that around? This loving, incredibly amazing woman gave herself an ulcer, and this was before microscopic surgery. So she had a big zipper, like it looked like that from the scars where they had to open her belly to work on it. And this beautiful woman, 115 pounds, dripping wet, stone, good, could have been a movie star, good looking Italian little, just a little fireball. She had her one essence, and Chris, you can nod. Her essence was absolute love of other human beings. And when she resented my dad over cloth, it almost destroyed her. It did destroy their marriage eventually. My dad did his things wrong. But if I was talking to her, what could she have done differently? Well, I got to tell you a story about how amazing this woman was. I must have been about 10 or 12, and we were in San Francisco, the hills. I had to be about 9, because we were in my dad's first new car, 1957 Chevy, 3 on the column, with that clutch that a 300-pound man has trouble getting down. And she stalled it on one of those hills. 2 lanes going up the hill. The light changed. Everyone in the other lane went by. Everyone behind her went around except the guy behind her, honking his horn. "Move your ass, move your ass, get out of there, honking, which made her more nervous. And now she's flooded the engine. She can't do it. She can't hold that clutch down and move to brake, and move the foot off the brake and onto the gas quick enough. And those of you that have never driven a clutch don't have that joy of feeling the blood run out of your leg trying to figure out how to get it going. And so finally, he sat there for 3 lights, honking and screaming and swearing at her. Finally, this essence came out. She pulled that emergency brake, got out of the car and went back to him. Now, if you tried that now, people are packing. Somebody might shoot. But back then in the late 50s, he was going, what was this beautiful woman is now walking to him. He rolls his window down and she goes, this isn't working. You're just making me more nervous. I can't go on. I got an idea. Why don't you go try and get my car started and I'll sit back here and honk and yell. He said, okay. He got out of the car, came around and got into the front seat. He's worked on it through a couple more lights. My mom's out back, leaning out the window, going, move your ass, move your ass. I'm honking at him. And finally, she gets the car started. He said, wait here. He got it up past the intersection to the other side so she could go downhill, came back around, they hugged and got in his car and left. She had to know who she was. That him making me nervous is not who I am. Who I am is I'm a little bit of joy. I don't know what your gift is. I like joy. Find something other than that they're causing. And even if it doesn't work, you've at least given you a chance at self-acknowledgement. Being responsible for myself means discovering who I am and showing who I am and having some impact somewhere. And if you don't reach the person you're aiming at, I guarantee someone will notice and you'll hear it. They'll go, how could you be so nice to her? I'd have ripped her face off. Well, and they may not be actually inquisitive to find out how you did it. They might have been critical with that sarcastic, how did you do that? But they asked the question. And until you ask the question, you can't know. How did you do that? And when we start teaching each other and listening to each other, being responsible for ourselves by sharing our gifts. And if they don't get it, find a new way, like Edison. Don't keep doing the same thing. We already proved that doesn't work. So find a new way. And when I'm responsible for myself, I don't assume shallow. Okay, I figured it all out. No, I assume depth. What don't I know next? And keep looking for the higher you grow in life, the pickier you got to be to find something to improve. You've got to be dedicated to being a lifetime learner. What else could I learn? You can memorize all 12 universal laws of success. You can put them into practice, but I guarantee you every single law you could do better. That doesn't mean you're bad or less than because you aren't doing it better. That just simply means I did good so far. What could I do better? And keep looking for that, okay, that wasn't that big a deal. You know, the times we just kind of write it off because they gave us that look, that, you know, the sigh with the eyes up and that. And we felt just a little resentment at that moment. I just think, well, you don't know what kind of morning I went through. I love you and accept you, even though I don't understand how you could treat me like that when you don't know. And just give them forgiveness. Remember the word forgiveness. Forgive, give forth love. And if I'm giving love, I'm being responsible for myself. It's not my responsibility that they receive it. But if they're important to me, I'm finding a different way to reach out to them. And to keep finding different ways till either I reach them or I die. But I'm in charge of me until I'm not. And there's no way else. We need support in life? Sure. If you need a counselor, if you need meds, if you need a bartender, a best friend, if you need somebody to talk to. But when you're complaining, I hope they look back at you and go, well, you're right. They really treated you rotten. What are you going to do about it? Instead of, yeah, they're an ass. I'd be mad too. Surround yourself with people that won't agree with you when you're complaining. Then you have a chance. No guarantee. But surround yourself with people that won't agree with you when you're complaining about how you've been treated or what you did wrong. Well, okay, you made a mistake. Quit beating on yourself. You're a beautiful person. You better have some people like that around you. Christine and I, I don't know. At times, sometimes the debates have turned to the fist, and she almost broke my nose once, and that's true. You can tell by her face she's laughing. That was the end result of a glorious trip to a holiday in Hawaii. And so it can go south, but the reaction has to be somehow doesn't matter. What matters is not what you did to me, it's what I'm going to do to you. And a few minutes later, we were laughing. I was bleeding, but we were laughing. And I can't tell you how many times it is. But let me give you an example of how easy it can be to get back. If you've ever watched a couple argue, it looks like this. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, nah, nah, nah. Well, nah, nah, nah. Well, nah, 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 nah. You know, that's what it looks like. That's what it sounds like. And then all of a sudden, I'll get it. And I'll go, ouch, that really hurt. And she'll say, well, it meant to. You pissed me off. And I'll say, well, it worked. And then she always says, well, I didn't mean to hurt you, but you really made me feel like you didn't care. And now we're talking about the real issues. And it all of a sudden is detuned the second she said the truth. Instead of using her hurt feelings as a weapon, she informed me that she'd been hurt by what I said. And I'm saying, well, I didn't intend to hurt you. You misinterpreted me. Well, that's my responsibility to correct misinterpretations, not hers to guess what I intended. And the more I can take responsibility for myself, the less often. Now, she just happens to be a little better at it than me. But that was one of the cases that I was able to do it. So that's really what I've got here today. I wish I could take you guys through the full 3 or 4 day workshop and show you all the different ways. But I guarantee you this, if you've got a situation you don't think you can handle, you won't. Whether you're right, whether you're wrong, start experimenting, but come from your gift. Find a way to overcome what they created and you create something. It doesn't even need to work. As long as you created it, you're in charge. Then you got a chance. No guarantees in life, but you got a chance. The only other way is the other person spontaneously gets it and changes. And the odds of them spontaneously becoming enlightened, especially ladies if they're men, the chances of them becoming spontaneously enlightened is just not reality. We do things for our own reasons, and they will change for their reasons, not yours, not ever. And you, same as you, will only make changes for your reasons, not theirs, not ever. Oh, you might try and con them, but that's not change. That's manipulation again. And so we need to be watchful for those manipulations. We can manipulate through anger. We can manipulate through tears. We can manipulate through silence. There's lots of ways to do it. That's just first level. You get to the fourth level and a third level, and that revenge, most people that say, I promise to cherish you until death, really means I feel to tolerate you until I feel like killing you. And if that's what we put in there, nobody would get married. And so we need to understand that we set ourselves up for it. And I believe the foundation of all our reactions, that we don't stay responsible for ourselves, is because somewhere along the line, low self-worth. And I think we got that before we knew English. I'm going to close with this. When you were a kid, the first word you spoke was probably mama or dada or yaya or something along those lines. But that wasn't the first word you knew. As you reached for a flame, they slapped your finger and said, no, 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 no. We heard the word no. It's been estimated over 10,000 times before we knew sentences. That we heard that word no so many times that all it did was reinforce, I'm limited. I might do something wrong. I'm probably stupid. Somebody else needs to protect me. And we either comply or we rebel. And either way, we lose our personal responsibility because we forgot to discover who we truly are. And you are the most unique human being that's ever lived. 10,000 years of evolution to get to you. What are you going to do with it? Doc, it's all yours.
Ross, before you stop, would you reiterate the three things you said? Love, acceptance, and I forgot
And
the.
forgiveness. And forgiveness.
Okay.
I actually just run a sentence through my head, and I learned this from Papa. I love you and I accept you, especially when I don't understand you, and I choose to forgive you because I'm in charge of me. You're not in charge of me. I love you, I accept you, even when I don't understand you, especially when I don't understand you, and I forgive you. Then I'm at choice. Otherwise, I'm at effect, and you're the cause, and that's not acceptable to me. I probably do it more than I'd like to know, but every time I can catch it, that gives me hope.
Wow. Ross, I got 3 pages of notes. I'm just, man, just thankful. You know, when you break in, emotions are so powerful. And when you can break them down in the ways that the little bites that you put together as you were saying, love, acceptance, forgiveness, resistance, retaliation, revenge, that we never really see it until somebody else shares with us, as you did, that revenge thing, that retaliation, that resistance. And man, the moment you're subjected to that, somebody else is pulling your strings.
Yep.
Yeah.
And most of us don't think about forgiving somebody for something minor. But if you don't forgive them when it's minor, it gets harder to forgive them when it gets major.
Ah,
And so it's two paths:
yeah. Yeah.
love, acceptance, forgiveness, or resistance, retaliation, revenge. And
Wow.
again, the same things to watch out for. You're either in denial that oh, I'm fine, it didn't hurt my feelings.
Uh-huh.
Denial, justification. I don't get mad, I get even.
Yeah.
Try or justification. If you were raised like I was raised, you'd be insecure too. Wallowing in, I must be stupid, or almost celebrating it. I don't get mad, I get even. And
Yeah.
rationalize that. I told you the truth and used it against me before, so I'm not going to tell you the truth again. Boom, you lose.
Wow.
Uh, if you're going to take advantage of me, let's be fully conscious of what you're taking advantage of. And if you're being taken advantage of at a job like George, you can quit and get a better job, but you don't need resentment to get a better job.
Yeah.
So we need to start looking at basing our decision instead of finding great reasons to react. Why don't we find stupid reasons to forgive and love? I don't know if that makes any sense, but we got too many people justified killing each other around the planet. Everybody's right and people are dying.
Yeah.
And if you were on their side, you'd feel like they did.
Wow.
And I hate that there is a their side. I don't know what anybody else there. I just hate that there's a. That's the only thing I really hate, that there's a their side. Pretty much everything else, it's got to be something to accept.
Yeah. Wow. Well, Ross, thank you so much. We getting ready to close out our live broadcast and then have our discussion. Those of you out on YouTube, thanks for being with us. We had a great group on YouTube and nobody left. Everybody really paid attention. This was a message that can transform you, and you may want to watch it time and time again. This is Dr. Herbert Harris. This has been Success Mentorship Class number 375 with the powerful message from James Ross Quinn, Embrace Responsibility. Wow, what a great message. I
Can
invite you
I
to, yes,
can I just add one thing quickly, Duck?
yes.
The love-based leader, if you're in the Great Discovery, is up chapter by chapter, and it's free for anyone in the Great Discovery. Get Over Yourself. There's some previews that are free, but the full one is expensive and worth every dime. But also, if you go to jamesrquinn.com, I'll put it in the thing. You can
Uh-huh.
also download a free PDF off my website of the Love Based Leader. And it's lots of George stories there. Friendly Fred, you'll love.
Uh-huh.
So please don't just take, if you, when I started, if there's, you don't need to understand everything I talked about, but if there was one thing that made sense, get the book and dig into it. And if anything that made sense to you is a clue, build on that. That's my recommendation.
Wow. I love that. Take what makes sense to you and build on that. We choose what we accept. We choose what makes sense to us.
Yep.
You know, as you were talking about that whole retaliation thing, you know, there are people who choose to retaliate even at their own peril when you can just choose to accept and go forth. It's like, I don't understand a thing. You know, we had a Dr. McCord, and he was a research scientist, and he was talking about a product called Protandem. And so when we would have our monthly meetings, our quarterly meetings, Dr. McCord would come and he would speak. And now he was a scientist, and he spoke in such high, we might say, high scientific concepts and words. And so when I came up after him one day, I said, Doc, I didn't understand a word you said, but the way you said it made me feel great. So thank you so much.
I like that.
All right, folks. All right. Thank you on YouTube. Be sure to visit our website, herbertharris.com. Get your copy of the 12 Universal Laws of Success. Get the Love Based Leader, and you will be transformed into something that you have. You know, the only limitation is your own imagination. So you can be what you want to be, do what you want to do, and have anything you desire, always knowing that the best is yet to come. And so it is.
Come on now.
Mm.
Breakthrough time.